Whee! My name is M.A.M.Z and today we're gonna do a comparison video between a Strat style guitar and a Les Paul style guitar. I started my own journey in guitar with an acoustic guitar, but just a few years down the line, I had to get myself an electric guitar. At that time of my life, I was fascinated by the music of bands like Iron Maiden, Guns N' Roses, Scorpions. And just by looking at the guitars that these bands played, there were two variants that really stood out to me: the Fender Stratocaster and the Gibson Les Paul. When my parents finally took me to get an electric guitar, there was a Strat style guitar waiting there for me, which I was instantly in love with. And it is this Peavey Raptor EXP guitar. At that time, I really did not have much knowledge about how different guitars can be different and what peculiarities did this particular guitar have. However, as I kept growing as a guitarist, I became more of a Strat style player, and as much as I shaped this guitar also shaped me. Many of the peculiarities of the Strat style guitar became very important elements of my own playing style. Now I think this story is probably from back in 2007 or 8. So it's been around 15 years now. Over the years, I have changed a few things, mostly out of necessity when things went bad. However, I have never really felt the need to upgrade the guitar. And I never even got to try a Les Paul guitar. I think the first time ever that I got to try a Les Paul guitar was probably in 2017. And the first experience was horrible. The main reason being that it was too heavy. The second time when I tried a Les Paul was at a guitar shop, and that day I was able to spend a lot more time and explore more of the different peculiarities of the Les Paul. Both of these were Epiphone Les Pauls, and with that second time that I did try a Les Paul, I started wanting to have another guitar, not to replace my Peavey Strat style guitar, but just to have an additional guitar that was a Les Paul style guitar. So this year in March, when I saw an ad on the used guitars market, I had to instantly get myself an Epiphone LP100. So it's been a few months that I've been playing this Les Paul right now, and I have noticed some differences that I think are the key elements. The first and most obvious difference are the pickups. The Strat style guitars come with 3 single coil pickups, whereas the Les Paul has 2 humbucker pickups. To extremely generalize it, we can kinda say that single coils have a very bright and very clangy, in a good way, kind of sound. Whereas the humbuckers have a much more thicker and a much more warmer sound to it. But besides the most obvious differences, there are a lot other differences as well. The one difference that you would probably notice when you hold a Strat guitar and a Les Paul guitar is that the body shape and how comfortable they are. The Strat style guitar is probably one of the most comfortable styles of guitar. It has what is called the comfort cuts and also a slight angle here which makes it very easy to play. Strats are generally known to be lighter than a Les Paul. However, my particular Peavey guitar is in fact extremely light. It's lighter than the Fender Player Series guitars. It's lighter than the Fender Squier guitars. It is the lightest electric guitar that I have ever played, and I have never found another guitar as light as this. The Les Paul, on the other hand, is not meant to be comfortable. I don't have the exact maths for it, but just by a rough estimate, I'm guessing that it's almost 3 or 4 times heavier than my Peavey guitar. And of course, there are no comfort cuts on this guitar. So when we're playing this Les Paul guitar, the sides of the guitar really cut into our ribs. On top of that, because it has a very heavy body, if I just leave it, it tends to slope this way. So I have to always be holding it in position. Otherwise the guitar is just gonna fall off like this. Now the next difference that you will notice between a Strat style and a Les Paul style guitar are the way these switches and knobs work. Since I have 3 pickups, my pickup selector is a 5-way switch, wherein I can use either only the neck pickup, or only the middle pickup, or only the bridge pickup, or combinations of neck and middle, or middle and bridge. The Les Paul, since it only has 2 pickups, there is logically only 3 different possibilities that you can have. Only the neck, only the bridge, or both of them combined. However, I have to mention that there are variations of the Strat style guitar and the Les Paul style guitar which come with different switch configurations. There are some Les Pauls which have a push-pull knob that gives you single coils on the humbuckers itself, or there are some Strat style guitars which only give you 3 positions, and even some Strat style guitars which have a push-pull knob and that gives you combinations like the bridge and the neck. Now as far as the position of the pickup selector switch is concerned, I think this is more to do with taste, or even I would call it your habits. As I mentioned, I've been playing this guitar for 15 years, so I have a habit of reaching down to find my pickup selector. So I find it pretty unintuitive to reach up to find the pickup selector. However, I would say that if anyone had enough experience playing this guitar, then they would probably have a hard time finding the pickup selector down on a Strat. Now let's talk about the knobs. My Strat has 2 knobs, one for volume and one for tone. As you can see, I have already lost the upper plastic part of the tone knob and I literally use my fingers to adjust it. They are like master volume and tone knobs which control all of the 3 pickups. There are variants which come with 3 knobs, which is probably volume, tone, tone, or volume, volume, tone. I'm not too sure of that. I think the Affinity and the Players come with 3 knobs. But something like the Yamaha Pacifica comes with the same configuration of 1 volume and 1 tone knob. The Les Paul, on the other hand, has 4 knobs. So each pickup has a volume and a tone knob. This way we get a lot more flexibility where we can have less volume on one of the pickups and then switch pickups to have more volume on the other pickup. However, it is a little confusing on the middle pickup. What I had assumed is that when we're on the middle pickup, these volume and tone knobs would work like a mixer and I could keep the volume of, let's say, the neck pickup at 2 and the bridge pickup at 8 and blend in. However, that doesn't seem to be so, and when I roll the volume off even from either of the knobs, the volume or the tone seems to go down. However, definitely it's a lot more flexible than the Strat style guitar. One very obvious and clear advantage that the Strat style guitar has over the Les Paul style is this, the whammy bar. If you guys have been following my music, you guys know how much whammy is a part of my own guitar playing. So much so that when I'm playing other guitars, I often reach out to find the whammy bar and it's not there and life is sad and everything is in ruins and... So the whammy definitely adds a lot of expression to my own playing. And if I had it my way, I would have whammies on all my guitars. On the Les Paul, on the bass, on the acoustic, on the sitar, on the keyboards, on my vocals. Now, there was one more difference which I actually never ever knew about. I started noticing it as I started reading more about the differences in these two, and then also noticed it was there on my guitars. And that is the scale length. The scale length basically means the distance between the nut and the saddle of the guitar. How I noticed this is a funny story. So I like to use 8 gauge strings on my guitar because I bend a lot and like to have it easy on my fingers. When I first got the Les Paul, the feeling of those strings felt very much like an 8 gauge to me. So I assumed it was an 8 gauge strings as well. However, when I asked the previous owner, they told me it was 9 gauge. And that was very surprising to me. When I started reading up about it a little bit more, that is when I read that 9 gauge strings actually feel like 8 gauge strings on the Les Paul. And that is because of the shorter scale length of the guitar. Now, let's talk about the most interesting part of this video. The sounds. I already touched upon the subject that the Les Paul has a much warmer sound and the Strat has a much more higher sound. In terms of clean sounds, I would always prefer the Strat sound where it seems to have much more life and much more expression in it overall. Humbucker pickers have a lot more output. So when we're trying to use it clean, it becomes very difficult to not have the amp break up. So clean sounds are really difficult to get on a Les Paul guitar. When it comes to heavier distorted tones, I have a very controversial opinion. I think they both sound the same. What I feel is that when we're using distortion, we can tweak the settings of our amps to make even a Strat style guitar sound much more heavier than it actually is. Hence, in terms of just the sound itself, I think a Strat style guitar is much more better. I think that the Strat style guitar is more of my preference. Maybe because I've been playing it for 15 years. So, coming to the conclusion of the video, what would I recommend? If you are a beginning guitarist or even a beginning electric guitarist with already experience in acoustic guitars, I would suggest you to get a Strat style guitar, because the first and most important thing is it's comfortable and you will want to play more. Secondly, with the 3 pickups, I think it has much more tonal variations than the humbucker pickups. And if you want to make it more beefier, you can always use EQs to make it sound much more heavier than what it actually is. Also, having the whammy is a big plus point. Now let me talk about who should get a Les Paul style guitar. Firstly, if you are already an exclusively Strat style player like I was and want a new sound, then the Les Paul is definitely a good option because it is almost a very different experience and a very polar opposite of the Strat sound. Secondly, if you are someone who almost never uses clean sounds, then a Les Paul would actually be an easier guitar to play because it drives much more easily and you can get distorted sounds much more easily than a Strat style guitar. And thirdly, and this in fact may be one of the most important things, if you like a Les Paul guitar more than a Strat style guitar, then you should definitely buy a Les Paul guitar. But regardless of whether you are a Strat style player or a Les Paul style player, one thing that both of you should definitely do is subscribe. Maybe in the future I will be doing exclusive videos for both my Peavey as well as the Les Paul guitar, going more in depth and showing you more sounds from them. Let me know if you guys like these kind of videos and I should do more of them or not. So after you finish typing down in the comments, you guys should stay untuned. Okay, bye.